I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is Mark Shipley with the staff developer meeting today. We've only got 2 items on the agenda. The third item has been postponed for now. Coming back later on. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the first item. And that is basically, let's see here. First item is a rezoning request that involves part of the Velma Seal property. The Seal property is the property that is due south of McPhee Park. This is just a part of the property that they're basically requesting a rezoning. It's currently zoned agricultural, and the request is R1 OSR. As you all know, the property immediately south of this property, the Gibson property, is going through a rezoning process now with the Board of Mayor and Alderman. This property will likely be combined with that property, is my guess. I think Russ Rackley is here. If there's any specific questions, he's the applicant representing the rezoning request. But this is just actually at this point involving, as I understand it, Tract 1, which is around 7 acres of the larger Seal property. It's not the entire property at this point. So that's the request at this point.
Hey, Mark.
I don't know, Russ, if you have any specifics you want to add to that,
Yeah.
just go ahead and answer those questions if there are any.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Just a correction on the survey you showed, it's actually Tract 2. Tract 1 is the center retaining the house.
Yes, yeah, it's hard for me to see that. Yeah. It's the kind of irregular shaped property that is on the southernmost property line.
Yeah, so just I guess a little background for those that are interested. Velma, Miss Seal has divided this amongst I guess doing some estate planning. Tract 2 she deeded to her son, who lives out of state, and has put it up for sale. And we are currently under contract to purchase the adjoining Gibson tract. And this was an opportunity to rezone it and tie it in with a concept for the larger Gibson parcel due south of Tract 2 here. So yeah, with that, that's what we're looking for. I don't, the parcel on its own, OSR wouldn't be very viable. It's really with its highest and best use at this point is to combine it with what we're doing adjacent to the property. Otherwise, it would be just a single, really just suitable for a single resident or something.
Hey, Mark, this is Drew. Do you have a way of kind of highlighting? I'm having trouble reading the Track 1, 2, 3 and saying it's irregular. There's a couple of.
Yeah, let me try that. Sometimes this thing is. I'm not the best in the world, but let me see if I can highlight it.
Got it.
Well, yeah, let me keep going here. I'm running out of my pen. Of course, McPhee Road is here, on the north end of the property. But basically the area within that it's a much straighter line in reality than my line, but that's the 7 acres that they're requesting to rezone at this time. And it would be
showing, Mark, that the house is on this one, because I kind of thought the house was on the other one.
There is a house on this lot, and then there's a house on Tract 1. I think that's a house, isn't it, Russ? I haven't.
Yeah, it's an older home. It's not been utilized or livable for quite some time. It's in great disrepair. But the house that they're currently living in is the one that's actually labeled house on the plan. The other small things is a much older, again, a knockdown, and a couple of storage sheds and chicken coops and stuff like that.
Russ, what's the point here?
I don't know, Ron, that I understand your question. We're asking to rezone this property to combine
Understood,
it.
but
Yeah.
So you're going to combine it with what's on the south?
Yeah. We would develop this along with the Gibson property that we have not submitted a concept for yet, that we just recently rezoned. Yeah.
Right. Okay, and the rest of that's that Mark did not highlight, which is would be to the north and to the west. That's what you're also trying to buy. Is that what, if I understand that correctly?
No, sir. That's not for sale. We did not create this. This plat and these 3 tracks are something that the current property owner, Miss Velma Seal, did with her and her heirs, if you will, in some form of estate planning. And for instance, the house that is currently lived in by her granddaughter is on its own parcel. I think the intention is that her granddaughter would one day receive that. And then I don't know about the large tract. We have been interested in buying the entire parcel for a couple of years now, but she's not interested for her own reasons and her own planning and selling. I think the parcel that's for sale that we have under contract was created and deeded to her son, who immediately put it up for sale. And but quite honestly, not to speak out of turn, I don't think Miss Velma is happy at all about that. But it's best use now that it is available is for us, since we are looking to develop the property that it abuts.
Okay.
So it's kind of like going back to the Goen property. We're only able to deal with what's available to buy. we would love to buy it all, but if they're not interested, and by not interested, I don't mean they didn't like our number. I mean they won't even take a number. So they're just not interested in selling. Right.
Okay. Now you say there's 3 parcels, so there's that very large one that looks like it must have a driveway easement that goes down to McPhee, very narrow frontage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to the north. And then the second one is to more of a true rectangular shaped piece that's kind of in the middle between the one you're looking at and then that skinny driveway easement that comes off of McPhee. Is that correct? Is that the 3 lots?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
That's lot 1. That's lot 2. And then that's lot 3.
Yep.
Okay, and lot 3 and and the one in the middle are not for sale, right?
That's correct.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
So the one you're getting has the frontage that's will be to the south, and then it kind of looks like a cleaver, so to speak. Yes. As far as I got it. I have no other questions.
Yeah, they'll just dissolve that property line between them and the Gibson on track 2 and incorporate that into whatever they do with the Gibson's property. Obviously, when we get to the point of looking at the subdivision, I think it'd be wise to assume that the rest of this property will someday be probably incorporated into that development. So we'll need to think about that as far as a vehicular connection, pedestrian connections, and things like that. So that's not really relevant to the rezoning request itself. The rezoning request, similar to Gibson property, is consistent with their future land use map in that area. Open space cluster residential is specified for this property as well as the Gibson. So as far as the rezoning itself, it would be consistent with their land use plan.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark, and I can just add that we fully understand that. We would hope that one day that the remainder of this property would become available. So, although it would be nice to master plan somebody else's property for them, but that's not the role we play. So, and our preliminary sketches, we definitely have roads as required by the Farragut subdivision regulations. We have roads stubbed out to that large tract, assuming that one day, who knows when, but one day it'll be available.
That's good. Yeah, that's the main thing I would want, is just to make sure it's not precluded from happening in the future.
Okay, now, again, this is Mayor. So you're going to stub out to the large piece, but not the piece in the middle?
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
Mark, does this require 2 entrances?
No, the two. No, that's based on number of lots. You'll never get 30 lots on just this 7 acres. So, but as this property's incorporated, which again, this has nothing to do with rezoning, but as this property's incorporated with the property to the south, the 2 entrances comes in with the fire code and number of lots served off a single access subdivision. So that's again irrelevant to rezoning, but that's another issue at concept.
Well, I'm just thinking ahead because of how the way the property lays.
Yeah.
It pretty well lays the same with the Gibson property, don't it?
Yeah, it does. This was all. Historically, this was all one property. Going way back when with Gibson. So I don't recall off the top of my head when Mr. Gibson bought his part, but it was originally one large tract with Gibson.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Does any other commissioners or board members have any questions for this on this item?
Hey, Mark, it's Drew. I'm with the rezoning. I think it makes sense. When you combine this property with the Gibson property, does that come out with 2 entrance exits?
Yeah, I believe it will. I haven't looked at that yet because we haven't had a concept submitted formally, but I believe it would have that. Yes. Yeah.
Well, Drew, really, we have 2 choices. If we want more than 30 homes, we can do 1 access and sprinklers, or we can do 2 accesses that meet the requirement of the fire code for secondary access as far as spacing goes. So that's a fire code issue at concept on number of accesses, and we could always do a single access, but right now residential sprinkler costs are not real conducive to implementing. So we would desire 2 accesses, but it really depends if we can get the required spacing.
Understood. Thank you.
And they do, just so you know, we'll be looking for them to stub into adjacent properties, to the south of Gibson, and also, obviously to the larger tract here in the Seal property. So those are things we'll look at so that there's cross-lot connectivity, between these properties as they develop over time.
Yeah, and I appreciate you looking at those. That was really kind of my only concern, is that we have these smaller tracks pop all up and down McPhee Road of different developers, and so you've got these, just a system that doesn't mesh well together. So I love the idea of stubbing them in for future connectivity.
This is John Green. I have no comments on the rezoning.
Yeah, I have to agree with Drew on stubbing them in. We don't want to tentatively create a very large Grigsby Chapel here with all the different entrances. And it's single families. I mean, or single entrance subdivisions. We have, as you just about described, Grigsby Chapel. Those would have been way better if it had multiple entrances.
Mark, this is Commissioner Russ. I don't have any comments or questions about the zoning.
Okay.
Commissioner Bellamy has no comments or questions.
All right. Any other commissioners present, or you might have any questions? Anyone else?
Don't look like there is, Mark.
Okay. All right. Well, we got about 10 minutes to the next item, and it's a re-subdivision plat dealing with part of the Boring property at Boring Road and Boring Lane. We'll take about a 5-minute break. We can come into this one a little early. It's pretty straightforward, I believe. I'll come back here at about 25 after.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Let's go ahead and we'll get started on the 10:30 item. Staff developer agenda, September 29. This item is involves a re-subdivision plat. It's pretty minor. This is part of the Ben Boring Estate property. This one's at the eastern intersection of Boring Road and Boring Lane. And really the only reason that this is going to the Planning Commission is that the applicant is going to be requesting a variance to not construct a pedestrian facility along Boring Road at this time due to the minor nature of the subdivision involved. This is a minor re-subdivision. It's 7.5 acres. They're dividing it into 2 lots. One would be a little under 2.5. That's lot 1 there on the right side. And then the left side lot is about 5 acres, lot 2. Historically, for a redivision of property like this, the Planning Commission has supported a variance just because it's a very minor subdivision. It's not like somebody's, developing it and putting a number of lots in there. So that's mainly the reason why that's going to the Planning Commission. There'll be some right of way that they'll be dedicating as part of this re-subdivision plat, both on Boring Road and Boring Lane. Both of those actually are public streets that have been accepted by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen a number of years ago. Although I think Boring Lane is not a street that we have been maintaining, to my knowledge. So if anybody has any questions on this re-subdivision plat or the variance that they're requesting to not build a sidewalk basically along their side of Boring Road, I'll be happy to try to answer those questions. I think Benny Mormon, the surveyor, is also here on the call if you have any questions for him. Is there anything I missed, Benny, that you wanted to bring up? Anybody have any questions on this re-subdivision plat or on the variance request?
Mark, can you enlarge that image a little bit?
No, I can't. It's in PowerPoint, and I'd have to bring it back in a different different size to have the fair.
Now, if you need to enlarge it.
I'm sorry, what?
Commissioner Green, if you need to enlarge that for your own viewing, over there on the left-hand side, you've got a little scroll bar. It has a plus and a minus, if that helps.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to read, but I'll try to. Let me see if I can draw this a little bit here.
That minus a lot. Who's Mark? Who's the current property owner?
It's the Boring Estate family. Ben Boring, he had passed away recently, and his estate is gone to his children, and they're basically dividing up the property. I think Ben Hughes is the property owner that's involved in this particular redivision of property. But basically, here's the new property line It's coming down through here like that.
Mark, what's that broken line, or not broken line, the line in the dot, right adjacent to the line you just drew there?
It's a fence.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not really much to say about this one, other than, like I said, historically, for just a minor redivision of property like this, we have supported variance requests to not build a sidewalk, because the sidewalk would be along this section here. So it's a pretty significant amount of frontage for just dividing the property into two lots. So,
Mark, I didn't quite understand or hear what you said about Boring Road and Boring Lane. Did I hear you say Boring Lane is not maintained by the town?
I don't believe we've maintained it in the past. It is a public right of way, and it's actually been accepted as a public street a number of years ago through the previous Board of Mayor and Alderman. But I don't believe the town has actually maintained Boring Lane, at least not to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Marcus is mayor. If this is only R1, am I correct there?
Yes.
And
yes, it is.
I could not hear whenever you were talking about the actual variance. And what's the variance request again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the variance request is normally on Boring Road, because it's a local collector street. It would be required to have a pedestrian facility as part of the subdivision process. So and normally that's associated with, more of a true subdivision where they're actually adding a public street and more lots in the development. This one is similar to a redivision of property that occurred on around Boring Road a few months ago as you're going towards Smith, the old John Smith farm property, where they were basically dividing that into 3 lots, I believe it was, but it was pretty large lots. And we did support a variance to not build a sidewalk based on that subdivision of property. Of course, if they were to go in and further or redivide this property to add more lots, then it would be a completely different matter, and the pedestrian facility would likely be required.
What if it's one house?
One house on lot 2. Well, the matter right now is just the re-subdivision itself. So
I understand that, yeah. But I'm looking ahead for sidewalks. I'm not real wild about people dodging sidewalks. I mean, it's not what we're all about.
Well, it's up to the planning commission as far as whether you all want to grant a variance. You don't have to. I mean, you could say that, well, we feel like they need to build the sidewalk out there. And that's certainly up to the planning commission as whether they want to do that or not. The way they're dividing it right now, it looks to me like there's obviously a house on lot 1. Lot 2 would be a lot for a house. But the house construction itself wouldn't trigger the sidewalk requirement. It's the subdivision of the property that would trigger that. So this is the stage within which they would be requesting a variance, and that would be reviewed by the planning commission on the merits of the case. And if you all feel like they need to build a sidewalk along the frontage, then that's the planning commission's prerogative. So
okay, Mark, thank you.
I think it's a little over 500 feet on the lot 2 of frontage, and then it looks like about 110 on most of the lot 1 as far as the Boring Road frontage. So it'd be, 620 feet of sidewalk, basically.
Mark, there's also, this is Benny, there's some curves that extend on along Boring Road, so it would be getting
Yeah.
up close to 700 feet.
Really?
And I'd like to add that this is truly just an estate subdivision. Miss Hughes is one of the siblings. She is going to live in the home place, and her two brothers have chosen to combine their parcels into just one as opposed to two, with hopes of selling and only one home being added in the area. So, it really would put a hardship on them to have to put in a sidewalk of this nature when it's just for an estate sale. But
Yeah, and the planning commission could say that, if lot 2 is further redivided, then the pedestrian facility could or would be required. So it could just be on this specific item itself, as far as the variance request, it would just be involving the redividing the property from 1 to 2 lots.
Okay, Mark, it's Mayor again. That's about 7.5 acres. Is that what we got
7.57, yes.
on lot 2?
No, lot 2 is
No, the whole thing,
4.96.
the whole tract. Yeah.
Okay, what's
All of it
now?
together.
What's the split?
It's split up into 1/3 of the property is going to lot 1 and 2/3 is going to lot 2. Lot 2 is 4.96 acres. Lot 1 is 2.48. And they're dedicating to the town 1/1300ths of an acre for right-of-way purposes.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Any other commissioners or board members?
Mr. Mormon, this is Commissioner Bellamy. Could you define specific hardship?
Well, I'm not necessarily, as far as a specific hardship would simply be, and I know that's not typical, but this is for a division of property of an estate. It's not for monetary gain at this time, and even further development. It's just that the siblings have to divide the property amongst themselves for their planned uses.
Thank you.
Typically, what we've based a division of this on, a variance approval, has been based on the Supreme Court's rough proportionality test, which basically says that the regulation is proportionate to the action being requested. So if somebody is adding a lot more potential traffic and pedestrian, both pedestrian and vehicular, based on their action, then the requirement, in this case, the sidewalk, would be proportional to what they're requesting. But if somebody is only adding one house to the area, the question is whether that action is proportionate to the requirement of building up to 700 feet of sidewalk. So from our historic actions that we've taken, we've, kind of sided on with the rough proportionality test and saying that, this scale of redivision is not proportional to requiring somebody to add 700 feet, in this case, of sidewalk on their frontage. So if that helps, I don't know if that's getting into Supreme Court matters here, but that's been our legal basis for these matters in the past.
Hey, Mark, this is David. Quick question for you. We had a recent issue, the same position on boring just down the street.
That's
I
right.
don't recall what the planning commission did in that case. Can you give them an update on what we did there?
Yeah, it was, and I alluded to that a little bit earlier, on around the corner on John Smith's old property. It actually backs up to Fox Den as well. We did grant a variance from the requirement to build a sidewalk in that case as well because of the minor nature of the subdivision that was presented to the commission. What we did with that property and what we ought to do with this property is it'd be clear that if they do further divide the property, then, obviously that would be reevaluated and the pedestrian facility would very well be required. We're just looking at it in the case of this particular subdivision, you're taking a 7-acre tract and you're divided into 2 lots with the potential of adding 1 house as part of that redivision. So it would be not requiring the sidewalk in this case would be consistent with the action that was taken by the planning commission for the property on around the corner on Spring Road. So, but again, similar to what we did with Smith's property, if they were to come back and further redivide it or request to redivide it, then it would be a completely different review, and the pedestrian facility would be reevaluated at that time and very likely would be required.
That's a good explanation.
Does anybody else have any questions or?
This is Commissioner Green. I have no additional questions or comments.
Commissioner Bellamy, no further questions or comments.
Mayor Wade, no additional comments or questions.
Okay, Benny, you have anything else to add, or you okay?
I'm good. I appreciate your all's time and consideration. And at this point, I'll be addressing the comment that you previously provided, the 2. And then I guess this still goes before the meeting here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, on the 15th of October. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to consider these items separate. The variance would be one action item and then the plat itself. So
should I, as I've noted the variance on the plat in anticipation of a favorable ruling, should I add anything along the lines of it is understood that should the property be further subdivided, can be revisited?
Yes, I think that would help. Yes, and we had them add that to the plat on Smith's property, so I think that would be a good note to add. Yes, so it's clear.
I'm going to add that underneath the variance note that's there, so they're linked together. Okay.
Yes, that would be good.
I'd probably add an S to the properties.
Should these properties be further divided? Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have anything on this item? Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, item number 3 is withdrawn for today. So,
Mark, I have a question.
Yes.
Are we scheduled for a real meeting on the 15th of October?
No, it'll be a WebEx meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think that goes through October. I'm not sure what will happen after that.
Yeah. It's
What time is that meeting, Mark? Is it normal time?
It will be 7 p.m. and we'll send you a link just like we did with this meeting, be WebEx.
Thank you.
order goes till the 29th of October. And then there'll be some decision after that, whether we'll be stay virtual or whether we'll go live or not.
Okay, anybody else have anything? All right, thank you all for your time.
Thank
This
you, Mr.
concludes
Shipley.
the staff developer